This is Viewed and Reviewed, the monthly show where I review every film and TV show that I have watched. This month is November, so let's get straight to it. Starting with Last Night in Soho. Edgar Wright's latest is Last Night in Soho, a mystery horror thriller film about a young girl who loves the 60s, but her love is being shattered when she starts seeing events leading to a murder. This is a fun, energetic and very stylish horror film, and it has some genuine surprises, well-developed characters and some cool visuals. The problem is that sometimes it's a matter of style over substance. Sometimes it feels like Edgar and his crew are showing off, putting more attention on glitz and glamour than the actual story and the characters. I like this film. It's good, but it's not without its flaws. Army of Thieves. So, do you remember Army of the Dead by Zack Snyder? Of course you do, it's the zombie heist movie. Well, that's an old film now. This is Army of Thieves, a heist movie without the zombies. It sounds less interesting, but it's actually quite good. Army of Thieves is really fun. Its characters, particularly the lead, are great. There's genuinely hilarious comedy, cool action and thrill intense sequences. It doesn't reinvent the wheel in terms of heist movies. If you've ever seen a heist film before, you know exactly what to expect here. But the way in which it expands on the central character and world of Army of the Dead is pretty cool. Because remember, it is a prequel to Army of the Dead. And a good one. Wentworth Season 9. So Wentworth has come to an end better late than never, but this final season was a fitting one for the prisoners and the guards of Wentworth. While not the best season by any means, this season is certainly one of the better ones we've had in recent years. And it does a great job of giving all of the characters some sort of closure and giving us an idea of what happens next. Because it's set in a prison, there's only so much that can actually be done in terms of send-off. After all, not everyone can suddenly get released. That would be kind of silly. It's Wentworth as well, so it's full of twists and big dramatic moments and turns and surprises. It's part soap opera, part thriller, and I like this final season. It's a worthwhile one. Antlers, a horror film starring Jesse Plemons and Kerry Russell, is more of a deer in the headlights than a charging bull. Get it? Because of the antlers? Never mind. The film looks and sounds great. It's very stunning and very well made. The problem is that it's just boring. Yeah, the characters and the story aren't all that interesting and the story feels really slow and at times dragged out. There are also attempts at conveying really powerful, worthwhile messages, but they also get lost in the horror. Their point and meaning sometimes becomes a bit vague and perhaps even dangerous, but the messages and themes are there, and when they work, they work. If you love horrors, maybe give it a go, otherwise I wouldn't recommend Antlers. Eternals. I did a full review of this on my channel, so if you want a good dive into the movie, well, go watch that. It's on my channel. For now, I will say that Eternals was okay. It has a great cast of characters and it's visually stunning. However, the film is overly long with uneven slow pacing and it lacks much in the way of character development. It's also yet another Marvel movie where the villains just aren't all that compelling. They're CGI monsters. As far as Marvel movies go, this is one of the most disappointing, but it's still very enjoyable and at times fun. Fear the Walking Dead Season 6. Speaking of Eternal, we have a franchise that doesn't seem to know when to call it quits. The latest season of Fear the Walking Dead is actually one of the better seasons of the show. Surprise, surprise. This season we have the fallout from the prior season of all the characters adjusting to their new roles, new leaderships and new situations and more. Then it all shifts focus about halfway through and becomes about stopping a crazy cult from sending the apocalypse into, well, another apocalypse, as strange as that sounds. This season is unbalanced. There are some awful moments, but it also has one of the best episodes of the show's run thus far, as well as one of the best, if underutilized, villains of the show's history so far. I liked it overall. The show's still second fiddle to the main one, but this was an improvement over some of the recent seasons. King Richard. Here's another one where I've got a full review on my channel, which I thoroughly recommend you check out. The short of it is that this is one of the best films this year, and Will Smith is absolutely fantastic in it. It treads familiar grounds in terms of biopics and structure, but it nails the formula, which is a great cast with a good mix of drama and comedy and some cool visuals and locations. I really recommend this film, but it's arguably a little long and sometimes focuses a little too much on tennis. So if you are not a tennis fan, you might not be super engaged at all times throughout this movie. The Harder They Fall. So, I love a good western, but we rarely get them these days. The Harder They Fall won't go down as one of the classics, I've got to be honest, but it has its moments, and overall it was okay. I enjoyed it. The standout elements here are the cast of big names, all of whom are really quite good and all have unique personalities and quirks and abilities and roles in this movie. The other element of note is the direction and the editing. At times this looks and feels like a Tarantino movie, and that's high praise. The only thing is, it doesn't have the smart, witty script that Tarantino has. The way this film is filmed is really cool and colourful and fun. The film struggles to maintain a pace though. The story sometimes gets lost amidst the style and presentation and the action, and it's not all that original either. It is just another western, but like I said, I did enjoy it. Grey's Anatomy Season 2. Time for an oldie. Although, can it be an oldie if the show is still ongoing now? Regardless, Grey's Anatomy Season 2 is okay. This is a medical drama that really emphasizes its soap opera elements over believability and reality. So many things the characters say and do happen because it's dramatic and shocking and impactful, and because it makes good TV, rather than because it's a living, breathing person who would actually say and do those things. So, as such, Grey's Anatomy is very enjoyable, so long as you know what to expect from it, and so long as you don't take it too seriously. This isn't ER, a vastly superior show in which every which way. You know what, go watch ER. ER's a better show. But Grey's Anatomy, not too bad. Can the sixth time be the charm for Home Alone? Can an actual sequel to the first two films revitalize this franchise that arguably should never have been a franchise? Well, sort of-ish. Home Sweet Home Alone is, honestly, it's not a good film. It has problems with pacing, repetition from prior movies, and it lacks the heart and soul of the first two classic movies. However, despite this film's many flaws, and there's a lot of them, I enjoyed the heck out of it. I found it to be funny at times. There's a twist with the main characters in that the person home alone is not the main character of this film. In fact, that child actor is actually kind of the villain, which is kind of cool. I liked almost all of the cast and characters. They're pretty likable and well developed, except the new kid who is very annoying and frustrating, but I think it's meant to be deliberately annoying and frustrating. This really wasn't as bad as I was expecting, and I think it's somewhat worthy third entry into the franchise. Let's pretend there weren't other films between Lost in New York and this one. Now for another film about a child spending a lot of time on their own, sort of. Petite Maman is not going to be for everyone. This is a very slow, very art house French film about a girl discovering what her mother went through at her age. There's a cool, interesting mix of drama and fantasy in there. It's very well directed with good acting and sets, but it's also really tough to watch because it moves along at a snail's pace. Luckily, it's short. It's only an hour and 10 minutes or so. This isn't a film for me or many people, I imagine, but I appreciate the craft that went into it. The Morning Show, Apple's big quality drama, is back for a second season. This time the focus is on the pandemic, and it starts closing doors on ideas and themes around the Me Too movement and cancel culture. The first season progressively got better throughout its run. By the end of it, it was really quite good. This season, however, wow, it's a tough one. The way in which it tells its story isn't good. I mean, the first 10 minutes jump us through time 3 different times. Instead of continuing from the last season, we go to a different time period. It's weird. This is also a show that tries to say a lot but ends up saying nothing because it tries to throw in so many different perspectives. It tries to sympathize with bad people, and it rarely takes an actual stance one way or another. The pandemic has also had a big impact on things, altering the way certain scenes were filmed and also cutting out a bunch of characters from the prior season. There's so much potential here. This should be brilliant, but it's so frustrating that it just never really gets there. The last few episodes though are the best. Spencer, the film all about Diana Spencer and the film that's desperately trying not to be anything like the hit TV show The Crown. Luckily for Spencer, the central performance from Kristen Stewart is brilliant. She's a contender for an Oscar in this film. She brings the character to life. With her breathy, husky voice, an examination of her eating disorder, her love for her children, and her distaste for her aristocratic lifestyle. The film does a pretty good job at building tension and mixing fact and fiction, sometimes even veering into psychological thriller and fantasy territory. It's by no means an accurate portrayal of Diana or her life, but an interesting one that will divide audiences because of its slow pace and stylistic elements. For over 30 years we've waited for Ghostbusters 3, and while the title may say otherwise, this is it. Ghostbusters Afterlife is a flawed film. It relies a little too much on nostalgia, and in the back end it repeats certain plot points and moments from the original film. It's also a little slow throughout its first hour. However, while it's not perfect, this is a film that I love. It features new characters alongside the old, focusing on a younger generation discovering what Ghostbusters is all about. There's plenty of heart and emotion in there, horror and thrills. Take away the whole Ghostbusters lineage and you have a film that looks and feels like a classic adventurous 80s movie, akin to the Spielberg movies and The Goonies. It's a good film, maybe even great, and I'll say it again, I loved it. Check out my full review on my channel if you want more about Ghostbusters Afterlife. Dwayne Johnson has been keeping himself busy again. This time he brought along Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot for Red Notice, a mishmash between Indiana Jones, National Treasure, and buddy spy films and sort of Fast and Furious as well. I can't stand here and say this is a good film. The sets and CGI are pretty bad, the story and characters are generic and unoriginal, and the film lacks a certain energy needed to really build up this type of film and make it truly shine. However, the action scenes are okay, there are some fun twists, and the comedic moments mostly work, so if you have a spare 2 hours, there is a certain fun factor to be had here with Red Notice, just not a massive one. Returning like an addiction is the third and final season of Narcos Mexico. This is more Narcos of the Mexican variety, for better and for worse. It has gorgeous visuals, a good cast, and some cool tense sequences. The action scenes are quite good as well. The problem is that it's lacking in originality at this point. There's little new here that we haven't already seen in the prior 5 seasons of Narcos. It also doesn't help when there are so many characters, so many factions, so many perspectives, so little time dedicated to each one of them. It's hard to stay invested in every aspect of the show and its story, and it's hard to keep track of it all. So there are quite a few dull, boring bits here and there. It does, however, end well, but I think this is one addiction we have to give up and move on from. I'm sorry for all the addiction comparisons. And that's the month of November! If you're a fan of Ghostbusters, check out Afterlife. I loved it and I think you will too. If not, check out King Richard. It's a feel-good biopic that doesn't reinvent the wheel but has compelling characters and a good story. In TV land though, there's little I would actually recommend, unless you're already watching any of the long-running shows like I've mentioned, such as Wentworth. And I will be back next month for December because that's how it works. If you've liked this video, subscribe to my channel for more content like it, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at _Grant Burton. Until next month though, thanks for watching.